Okay, so equivalent trig expressions. In this question, they ask us to prove that this idea, cosecant pi over 4 is equal to root 2, show that secant 3 pi over 4 is equal to negative root 2 with a similar expression. So we have some similar expressions here. And what we're going to talk about is, we'll talk about some quadrants quickly. Let's base our quadrants here. And both of these angles are in quadrants 1 and 2, right? So in quadrant 1, everything is positive. And in quadrant 2, our sine is positive, which means the inverse of sine, being cosecant, is also positive in quadrant 2. And while in quadrant 1, everything's positive. So they're talking about this angle here, which, if we convert it to degrees, we know is 45 degrees. In quadrant 1 and 2 is equal to root 2. Okay, and it's essentially root 2 over 1. That's the trig ratio. Secant, though, this is clearly in quadrant 2, this angle, right? And this one was technically number 1. This angle here is 45 degrees in this quadrant, which we know it's going to be the same idea, just that it's a negative value because secant isn't positive in there. And we're going to prove it algebraically. These two formulas, or our top two here, are more relating to quadrant 1. We're taking 90 degrees and subtracting some angle from it to get an equivalent of our cosecant and secant. But we're not in quadrant 1. In this specific one, we're in quadrant 2. So quadrant 2 here, well, we have negative cosecant x is equal to this formula and this one. So we can work with, if we want, and maybe this is a good way to go about it, is our secant 3 pi over 4, we can sub into this formula here, if we want, to kind of work out algebraically what we need to do. So this formula here is one we're going to use. Secant, and it's 3 pi over 4, correct? Yeah. Is equal to cosecant 3 pi over 4 plus pi over 2. Okay. So with that being said, we take our cosecant here, and we're left with 3 pi over 4 plus, this is going to be 5 pi over 4. So we're left with cosecant 5 pi over 4. So this leaves us a value that's in, it's in technically 3. So let's talk about 3. 3 is tangent. Tangent's what's positive here, or cotangent, which means our cosecant, if we're in this value, whatever that's equal to, cosecant's no longer positive there. And we knew that cosecant of that angle, okay, cosecant of that angle was technically positive before. So we've now moved into a quadrant where cosecant wouldn't be positive in there, essentially be a negative answer. So in a way, saying that this angle here, which is related to this, is now becoming a negative value. Might be simpler if, let's see, I did write those right. Yeah. If we were to plug in maybe the reverse of it. No, I'll say this 5. Maybe we can try. No, these will give us 45s, all of these. You know, related to these formulas, we're going to relate this idea. So we needed to show that secant 3 pi over 4 is equal to negative root 2. Okay, so we'll relate it to cosecant, because cosecant pi over 2, they want us to relate it to this idea somehow. And we have this relationship here. Seeing that this is secant x, this relationship is probably the easiest to work with, especially because this is in quadrant 3. This one's in quadrant 2, and this is the idea of being in quadrant 2. We're taking 90 and adding some angle to it. So we'll take this value. This is technically a value we could use and probably still get to the same answer, but we'll use this one because of what quadrant we're in. Okay. So algebraically, we take our secant 3 pi over 4. Yeah. 3 pi over 4 is equal to cosecant. And we take that same value, 3 pi over 4 plus pi over 2. Okay? And we'll work with the right side of the equation. Cosecant is then equal to 3 pi over 4 plus 2 pi over 4, which gives us cosecant 5 pi over 4. Okay. First of all, let's relate cosecant. Cosecant is the reciprocal of our sine, right? And we know that sine is equal to opposite over the hypotenuse, so the reciprocal of that, cosecant, would be equal to hypotenuse over opposite. This angle ends up in the third quadrant, where we have 5 pi over 4, right? So we look at the cast system. Third quadrant, only tangent is positive there. So cosecant will be a negative value. Right? And if we're using our unit circle, we're always talking about a distance of 1. This is a 45-degree angle. So we're creating a triangle where this is 45 degrees. We go from here. We know that this relationship is essentially -1, this being also, we can say -1, and this being root 2. If cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite, we have root 2 over 1 as an answer, which is, or sorry, negative root 2 over 1 as a